What's up guys and welcome. You are watching Fazi Fitness. So let's start this video with an update of classic physique legend, Chris Bumstead. So Cbum is getting bigger by the day. He took his time to recover from that shoulder surgery, but is now slowly getting back into the groove. Again lifting some heavy weights in the gym. Now anyone out there who has followed Chris Bumstead throughout his career, they already know that he absolutely loved to deadlift. And if we take a look at how his back just totally transformed from 2019 to 2020 in just a matter of 1 year, where he made that big unbelievable jump in terms of his back progress, and he made himself totally undeniable by bringing up a lagging body part. He attributes a lot of that to deadlifting. Now it is so awesome to see him back in the high spirits as Cbum tries to get all that muscle back that he lost during that rest and recovery time. And we all know the man has got some crazy genetics right there. Somehow Cbum was able to stay pretty damn lean during all this time. And now the goal is to get back up to 240 pounds with a very athletic build. So it was such a legendary run that we saw from Chris Bumstead. I mean, the man won 6 Olympia titles in a row, which is a record that will be very hard to match, let alone to beat. So could Cbum have won a couple of more titles? Well, considering the fact that he was only 29 years old when he retired, and most of these bodybuilders out there, they are just entering their prime when they hit 30, yes, absolutely he could have won more. But we know Chris Bumstead is very open about the fact that bodybuilding at such an elite level, that just always comes with a risk. And after having all the success, him risking a few more years of his life, that just wasn't worth it for him anymore. Before you scroll or blink too hard, have you subscribed yet? Please don't make me bring out the emotional blackmail. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon. It's free, it's painless, and that makes me look way cooler than I actually am. Even the cheat meals of Michael Krizo look like this. So this guy is one of the most regimented bodybuilder in that entire IFBB Pro League. And no wonder how he stays super lean, even at the peak of his off-season. So this update marks Krizo's 11 weeks out from this year's Prague Pro Show. And the Olympia now is about 9 weeks away. So it would have been so realistic for him to qualify for the Olympia this year, especially in shows like Cali Pro or Spain Pro. And then he could have easily done the Olympia this year because he's gonna be ready anyway for this year's Prague Pro Show. But he had other plans. So Krizo himself said that he wants to go into the off-season and make sure that the next time he steps on stage, he doesn't get the same criticism, especially in terms of his back, that it's still not where it's supposed to be. So would there be any noticeable back improvements when he steps on stage next time in about 11 weeks time? Well, in my opinion, the only major difference that we can see on him, that can be him executing those back shots a lot better and really well, as we saw how that was more of a mobility problem. And Krizo this time did a lot of posing practice, and he has been putting a lot of work in that department even now. So the problem with Krizo is that his most dominating shot, the most muscular, that is the last mandatory. And by that time, he already loses some ground in those front shots, as he doesn't have the smallest waistline and because of the shape of his obliques. In fact, those obliques just throw off the entire flow of his physique in those front shots. And then he loses some ground in the back shots because of the lack of width. Nevertheless, the man is still a top 8 Olympian, and he relies on the freak factor. So Prague Pro is scheduled about 2.5 weeks after the Olympia this year. So it will be interesting to see whether any of those top Olympians, they decide to jump into that show and go for an early Olympia qualification. So John Jewett has reflected on his contest run, placing 4th in both Tampa Pro and Texas Pro. So placing wise, not the ideal results that he was looking for, as this is the guy who not only made it to the Olympia stage last year, but he was also on his way to place top 10 based on the score at the prejudging of the Olympia last year. So this time he has shut the season down, so he isn't pursuing his Olympia qualification anymore. So that means he is more than likely to return next year with some added muscle and mass. Now from the physique perspective, the conditioning, the peak, he looked absolutely amazing at Texas Pro. Now it is so unbelievable to think that John is a guy who was sucking down to 212 pounds just not too long ago, and he successfully grew into the show. He was 240 pounds on the stage at this year's Texas Pro, and the man was rock hard and very detailed on the stage. But the fact that the competition this time was way too deep, he just could not stand out. Now bodybuilding is all about the physique progression. If John would have decided to stay in the 212 and somehow make the weight every year, he would have qualified for the Olympia every single year, and he could have also placed very high, higher than top 10. But he would have never been able to make this kind of improvements in his overall physique. So both Tampa Pro and Texas Pro, they had crazy deep lineups and some amazing talent. And then that shape perspective that also came into play, which kind of held John back. Now for those of you guys who do not know, John also had a big health scare earlier this year, and he actually mentioned that in his most recent update. So coming out of that and being able to present the best physique of his career, that right there is a big accomplishment. This right here is true Derek Lunsford, the reigning Arnold champion and the former Mr. Olympia 10 weeks out of this year's Mr. Olympia. So when it comes to that back width, nobody comes close to Derek. He has the widest back on that Olympia stage, and that is exactly what makes it even more impressive. When those big lats, that small waistline, which helps him create that insane V-taper, that crazy X-frame that gets so much more pronounced. And his back looks so much more undeniable. So Derek's motivation is sky high this time. He wants to become the first bodybuilder to have lost the Olympia title, then came back, won the Arnold, that too very convincingly, and then he wants to win the Olympia too. Now we have been told by some legends of the game that it is simply too difficult to peak 3 different times in a single calendar year, and maybe that was the reason Derek chose to skip the New York Pro, because he was prepping for most part of this year and he was already unable to bring his 100% for the Pittsburgh Pro, and he had to take some rest and recover and detox properly before the Olympia this year. So Derek also has a lot of naysayers to prove wrong in 9 weeks time, because for some reason so many people out there are still so reluctant to admit that he has already accomplished so much, and that too at such a young age of 32. Most importantly, winning the Olympia title in 2 different divisions. Now Derek himself also knows that he cannot be even slightly off for this upcoming Mr. Olympia. He cannot show up the way he did for the Pittsburgh Pro and expect to place high at the Olympia, or expect to fight for the title. So what way do you guys think Derek competes at?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear what I got to do, just got to be sharper. And I got the time to do that. I got the time to get sharper and then pull back so my body's not in that crazy fat burning state the week of the show. And then, have issues uptaking calories and filling out. So, I know exactly what I got to do. And, we locked in, you know what I'm saying?
So with Quinton Beastwood announcing that he's doing European shows, the upcoming Italy Pro and Germany Pro, they are gonna be very interesting shows. So here is UK's own Mark Hector and Louis Breed gearing up for the European tour, and both these guys are totally different physiques. Not to forget, Sergio Oliva Jr. is also gonna be doing one or maybe both of these shows. So there is gonna be very diverse competition in all of those European shows. So there are some similarities between the physiques a guy like Mark Hector and Quinton Beast would have. But if you look at Louis Breed, that is purely a conditioning guy, a freak of nature, who has the ability to get harder and drier than arguably all of these above mentioned guys. And we have seen so many of these guest posing updates from Mark Hector and how big that guy was looking throughout this year. So he isn't messing around either. So with last year's Big Man Weekend serving as a test run for Mark Hector, he is very hungry for his first pro win. So this will be a very exciting show for the bodybuilding fans. So if Quinton can get harder and maybe come in a bit more drier, but at the same time stay full as a house, he can win those shows quite comprehensively because he just has too much of a shape advantage over the entire competition here. So hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video and smash the subscribe button if you wanna come back for more. Thanks for watching.